Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's David Cherry. Today, let's talk about sabotaging your own success on a subconscious level. If this is something that's new for you, I'm going to go over how you might understand if you've been someone who's been sabotaging yourself unknowingly. I'm sure you felt the results and the pain of this, but what I'm going to share with you today might explain a little bit more about what's going on. And then I'm going to share some tips about what you can do about this. We have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, and they're both on all the time, dictating what it is that we choose to do. The thoughts that we have in our conscious mind, they are present to us. We have a sense about what they are. And yet the subconscious keeps things a little bit hidden from us. These might show up a little bit in your dreams, as an example, or maybe when you get into a deep meditation, you start to access this different part of yourself that's there. A lot of people understand this from the frame of shadow work, which maybe you've heard of before. But the point is, you have sort of two selves to you. And if you are trying to accomplish something new, whether it's raise your prices as a freelancer or start something new as an artist who's wanting to launch a project, it's possible that you know consciously and rationally that this is something that you want and you're trying to do, and yet it's always something that seems a little bit out of reach. The way to understand if you're feeling held back by your subconscious is to start to understand, where am I putting in a lot of effort, but I never seem to see any result? It's like you're hitting an invisible wall. You try hard, put in a lot of effort, and you go through this cycle where you're doing it again and it's exciting, and then you hit a wall. And now you oscillate back to the place that you were already in. And so consciously and rationally, you can say, I want this. I want to create this success. I want to create a business. I want to create a project. I want to create a podcast, whatever it is. You're saying that, and yet you're not seeing that show up in your real life. It's possible, if this is the case, you're having some type of misconnect between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And what that does is it creates a push and pull dynamic. I want to be successful, and yet I'm scared of the discomfort that's going to come from doing that. I want to raise my prices, and I don't want to be uncomfortable putting myself out there. I feel fearful about actually stepping into that position. That fear can go on in the background. So how do we know when we're being driven by something subconscious versus conscious? The way we start to understand this is when we feel a moment where we actually can't understand rationally why we're feeling so much fear or discomfort or pain or emotions, whatever it might be. We can't actually place what's going on. So if you catch yourself in a moment where you're feeling suddenly a lot of irrational fear or irrational emotion, right? You are about to send out an email to a client to raise your prices, and suddenly you just totally freak out and you can't do it. Or you are finding yourself in a conversation with friends, and suddenly something's going on where you're like, wow, I'm feeling really uncomfortable, and something about this conversation is just really feeling terrible to me. I almost feel like I want to just leave immediately. When you actually start to lose the rational understanding for why something is going on, especially emotionally, that's a signal that something might be going on at a subconscious level, because your rational mind can't figure out what's going on. Some people in the healing spiritual communities call this a trigger. What they mean by that is, a trigger is something where suddenly you're catching yourself getting triggered, feeling emotions, pain, difficulty, stress, or fear just start to show up. But again, it's not irrational. I can't place why I'm feeling this way. So how do we put these two things together? We rationally want things, and yet we can't understand why we're feeling so much about the place we're trying to go, or where we're trying to move forward in our business or life or relationships, whatever it might be. And again, that's the push-pull dynamic. What's great is if you start to recognize that I'm mentally in alignment on a conscious level, that I want something. I want to get more fit. I want to start a podcast. I want a relationship. I want to start a business, whatever it might be. Rationally, you feel very clear about that, but be aware that something irrational or unconscious is going on that's holding you back. The good news is now you can start looking in the right place. If you've been spending so much time trying to further rationally figure something out, you don't have to do that anymore. And that's probably been really tiring and not working for you. Instead, we need to get underneath and understand what's going on at a subconscious level so that you can work with that, clear that out, and get rid of this kind of push-pull dynamic where it's one step forward, one step back, or two steps forward, two steps back, whatever it is. Area is the spot to work on, not the conscious area. This might feel intuitively right, but logically you're like, I still don't really understand what this actually means. And that's okay because this is a new thing we're talking about maybe for you, or maybe again, you feel intuitively, yes, this actually feels right to me. So again, what can we start to do about that? When you have a fear or a trigger or you're feeling an irrational emotion come to the surface, stay with that because that is telling you a lot about what's going on. Want to start a podcast? Yet when I start to record myself and I see myself on camera, I just start to lose it and I freak out and I'm like, this feels so terrible. This feels bad. We need to understand and stay in that bad feeling to get a sense about what's really going on. And this is what you'll start to see. You'll start to see that, yes, I want to put myself out there and be on a podcast. I'm really afraid of what people are going to think about what I have to say. I'm actually really afraid of creating conflict for someone else in sharing something that might go against what they're saying. I feel a lot of fear saying things that other people might not understand. I really feel like I need to be understood. So what that means is now you're at a point where you see what you want logically, and you see the deeper fear on an emotional, somewhat irrational, somewhat unconscious level that's saying something different. Now we've got two voices. I want to start a podcast, and I'm uncomfortable sharing some things that are on my mind that I think other people might not agree with. Now you can work with yourself because you see both what's happening consciously and what's happening unconsciously. And I'll give you a hint without going too deep into it in this video, but the way to work with your unconscious and your fear is not with your logic. So I'm hoping this is giving you a good overview today about understanding and getting a little bit of a sense about, hey, why is it that I'm not seeing the progress in an area that I'm wanting? Why do I feel like I self-sabotage? It's because there's another voice at the table that's wanting to communicate with you in a different style that doesn't show up like your rational mind. So today, just start to get aware. When do I feel some type of way about this area that I care so much about? Be it relationships, business, projects, art, whatever it is. And how is that creating an invisible wall that I'm bumping into? Let me start to actually listen to that now, get a sense about why it's there, and that's going to give you some clues about how to work through it. Do you have any questions, thoughts, comments?